There truly aren't many coasters or rides in general that the majority come together to agree on the same thing. For example, people love Fury 325 at Carowinds, the intensity of the voyage at Holiday World, or even the thrill of the Velocicoaster at Islands of Adventure. But a coaster like Ninja at Six Flags Over Georgia? Well, it was deeply hated. It sparked the question, how could Six Flags Over Georgia bring this coaster to the park that was oh so painful to replace its predecessor that was also extremely painful? Well, Six Flags Over Georgia did just that. Now, at this time, please take a few seconds to put on your safety helmet and protective neck brace as you watch this video. Okay, all set? Good. Allow me to introduce you all to Six Flags Over Georgia's Ninja, the black belt of coasters. The year was 1935. A former state senator and optimistic and eager entrepreneur by the name of William C. Hunt would purchase the first major pier on the boardwalk called Ocean Pier, located in the Jersey Shore on the southern tip of New Jersey, bringing a new perspective to the area with the idea of the pier being more of an amusement park, as Hunt was an owner of a chain of amusement enterprises in South Jersey. William Hunt would spark this change by adding a Ferris wheel, dark ride, and the pier's first coaster in 1935 called Whirlwind, manufactured by Philadelphia Toboggan Coaster Incorporated, also referred to as PTC. Unfortunately enough, nearly a decade later, on Christmas Day of 1943, the pier would be completely burned down, killing one individual and causing $1 million worth of damages to 3 theaters, the pier, 2 hotels, 25 stores, and 9 homes. This devastating fire would cause the end to what was known as Ocean Pier. After such a huge hit and financial toll, William Hunt would remain persistent on bringing life back to the area by investing back into it. Hunt would rebuild the pier in 1957, with it now more into an amusement park, and would rename it as Hunt's Pier, this time building it out of concrete to prevent future fires from destroying the property ever again. With the reopening of the brand new pier on May 30th, 1957, Hunt would partner with PTC again to bring a 36-foot tall wooden coaster designed by John C. Allen called Flyer. Following the success of the pier reopening and wanting to bring in new attractions, 3 years later in 1960, another PTC family coaster would come to the pier called Golden Nugget, themed after gold mining during a gold rush. The park would continue to operate for over 2 more decades, slowly declining while bringing in a few basic flat rides and minor improvements, but no more additional roller coasters. Hunt's Pier would be sold in 1985 and would attempt to rebrand under new ownership as the new Hunt's Pier in 1986. This would be short-lived for only 2 years, as the new Hunt's Pier would be sold yet again to Conklin Shows, a traveling amusement park company, in 1988, and would close the wooden coaster named Flyer and rename the park again now to Conco's Party Pier. Conco's Party Pier would be marketed as newer, better, and with a massive highlight of a brand new roller coaster that would be the most expensive at $6 million, be the tallest, fastest, and most exciting roller coaster yet to touch the grounds of the pier, called Kamikaze. Kamikaze was the first Vekoma custom MK1200 built from the ground up in the United States, and also the second one ever built in North America behind Scream Machine in 1986 at the 86th World Expo. An interesting fact that this coaster actually started construction under manufacturer Aerodynamics. The project was picked up and completed by Vekoma. While things were extremely thrilling and exciting bringing something of such magnitude to the Jersey Shore, such as this 122-foot tall twisted coaster, the Conklin Shows company expanded too much and too quickly over a course of years. Investing too much, the company overextended themselves to the point of having to file bankruptcy. Unfortunately, in 1991, to get rid of some assets because of Conklin's financial strains and bankruptcy, meant that Kamikaze would be up for sale. Six Flags Over Georgia would purchase Kamikaze from Conco's Party Pier, nearly making their full amount of money back, as Six Flags Over Georgia would purchase this Vekoma custom MK1200 coaster for $5 million, $1 million less than what it cost Conklin Shows company to purchase the coaster. This would mark Six Flags Over Georgia's newest coaster. But where would this coaster be located at the park? Let's go back a few years from this point in the documentary. 4 years prior in 1987, a first of its kind and world shaker in its own right in the world of roller coasters left Six Flags Great America called Z-Force after a 2-year tenure at the park. Z-Force was a coaster aimed to mimic the likings of fighter jet motions, with the first of its kind hairpin dives. A hairpin dive is a non-inverting element that does not flip the riders. Z-Force, named after its zigzag track that Intamin subtracted Giovanola to develop this coaster, and was the first and only space diver coaster in the world. This coaster was extremely innovative in the sense that it was the first coaster to use computer-aided technology to design it, and the first coaster to use four-across seating trains. But please be sure to check out my full documentary on the history of Z-Force if you're interested in learning more about this coaster, that I highly recommend you all check out. But to sum it up, due to Six Flags ride rotation program that only saw 2 years of this coaster at Six Flags Great America before its departure to Six Flags Over Georgia, 2 years later after Z-Force debuted at Six Flags Over Georgia in 1988, it was time to pack it up yet again in 1991, due to the negative image Z-Force had at the park after an unfortunate death of an 11-year-old boy occurred in 1989 on the ride. Despite the unfortunate death of that child, it was also time for the ride rotation program to strike again, with Six Flags having in mind that a coaster should be experienced at one place for a short period of time, then be relocated to another park within the chain and marketed as brand new so new locations can experience it too as well. With Six Flags Over Georgia in need of a new coaster, this brings the story full circle back to the same timeline, as Z-Force was to be shipped out of Six Flags Over Georgia in 1991 to Six Flags Magic Mountain and renamed to Flashback, and Kamikaze was sold in 1991 to Six Flags Over Georgia due to Conklin Shows company liquidating assets in bankruptcy. Six Flags Over Georgia would rename the coaster from Kamikaze, that had a negative Japanese stigma, to a more celebrated in modern pop culture name with Ninja, which the park deemed Ninja as the black belt of coasters, even though historically ninjas were viewed as spies and assassins. This coaster was also renamed to share the same name as the first ever Vekoma Custom MK1200 in North America, Scream Machine, that was renamed to Ninja when it arrived at Six Flags St. Louis in 1989, after it sat idle for 3 years after the 1986 World Expo. After nearly a year of construction to reassemble Six Flags Over Georgia's newest edition in Ninja, painting the track red and the supports white, and having it standing in the space at the park that Z-Force once occupied, there was tons of hype and intrigue with this coaster, as Ninja would become the tallest coaster in the park at the time, overshadowing its new direct next door neighbor, Great American Scream Machine, that once held the title as the tallest coaster in the world when it debuted in 1973, that kept the title as the tallest coaster at Six Flags Over Georgia for 19 years, standing at a max height of 105 feet. Although Ninja would be the new kid on the block, Great American Scream Machine would still retain the position as the fastest coaster at the time at the park, with a top speed of 57 miles per hour. Ninja, though, would come to the park standing at a max height of 122 feet and a top speed of 52 miles per hour.
Loops and corkscrew turns, so awesome it can only be called Ninja, the black belt of roller coasters, the only ride of its kind in the South. Now imagine, it's not at Disney, but right around the corner from home. The all-new Ninja, only at Six Flags Over Georgia. Come on out this summer. The world of fun, not a world away.
Ninja, with 2 ninja statues intimidating guests at the entrance of the ride, would officially open to the general public at Six Flags Over Georgia on Saturday, April 4th, 1992. With an official ribbon cutting ceremony, this coaster was a huge draw for the park as huge lines would ensue. Wait times would increase and guests would wait patiently in line as the Atlanta Falcons football team and cheerleaders would get the first go on opening day of Ninja. Ninja would have 2 trains with 7 cars per train, with seating arranged 2 across in 2 rows, holding a total of 28 riders, and had bulky over-the-shoulder restraints. Ninja begins with leaving out of the station, taking a slow right turn, slightly dropping then continues straight on forward as it picks up speed, then takes a swift right again to head up the 122-foot chain lift hill. After reaching its max height, the coaster drops 109 feet down as it turns to the right, heading right into its first element, that was the first of its kind on a coaster. There are near misses where it feels like your head will be hit since the coaster is so twisted so closely. The first element you experience is the butterfly inversion, as the inversion loops and twists 45 degrees to another side, to another loop. After coming out of the butterfly inversion, you face another head chopper, where again you feel the coaster track is too low where you may hit your head. You then head into a 270-degree turnaround, right into a reverse sidewinder element, then aggressively turns left, experiencing another head chopper with a near miss with the track above, on into its final inversion of an intense double corkscrew. Then the coaster continues to pull left, routing back to the station. Riders just experienced the thrill of 52 miles per hour, 5 inversions, a unique world's first in the butterfly element, 2,739.5 feet of track, and a max of 4 G-forces. Ninja, to say so the least, was extremely well received and was highly praised for its crazy twists and turns and high thrilling elements. But looking at this boy's face and reaction could have been looked at as foreshadowing for what was to come.
Are you okay?
Dizzy.
You're kind of dizzy, huh?
Ninja would continue to fascinate parkgoers for years to come. As the coaster progressed into the early 2000s, changes began to occur. In 2006, the white supports were repainted to black, to more so match the color of a ninja shinobi shizoku, which are the traditional clothes that a ninja would wear that are often black, that would enable them to better blend in with the darkness of the night. At the end of the first decade of the early 2000s, due to the lack of maintenance and upkeep, the ride experience on Ninja became extremely rough. A ride on Ninja began to become an absolute nightmare of a ride experience, with all of those aggressive twisting back-to-back inversions, along with those very hard harnesses that sat right around the head of riders. This caused a lot of pain as guests would embark on 5 intense inversions. The word began to spread online on forums and amongst visitors about how rough and painful Ninja was. With the extreme roughness of Ninja, it also garnered a bad reputation, but also some negative nicknames too. Nicknames of the likes of the Headbanger, Ninja Ouch, the Headache Machine, and the Vekoma Torture Coaster, all due to the unbearable roughness of the coaster with those hard and unforgiving over-the-shoulder restraints that ultimately in turn made this coaster very immersive to its name, with immaculate theming as it would feel like you were actually up head to head against the highest rank of a taijutsu ninja master, where you would lose every single time.
I never need to ride that again.
Ninja became so comically bad that it was even featured in the 2015 Warner Brothers comedy movie starring Ed Helms and Christina Applegate called Vacation, that is in the National Lampoon universe. Ninja in the film would be known as the Velociraptor at a theme park called Wally World. When the family on their road trip went through leaps and bounds to get to the park to experience the newest coaster, they finally make it. When they get on the Velociraptor, they begin to feel a sense of relief and accomplishment as a family that they made it to their destination after going through so much throughout their journey. As the family on the coaster embarks up the lift hill, they begin to sing a cappella Kiss from a Rose by Seal. They drop down the 109-foot drop, turn right, then right into the first loop of the butterfly element. Then once they face the second loop, it gets stuck at the top where the family is completely upside down, where they were stuck for hours till the park closed after dark. Which ironically, this scene felt as a jab to Ninja from Warner Brothers, who made the 2015 Vacation film, and Warner Brothers has a long-term licensing deal with Six Flags for use of some of their intellectual properties and characters. With all of these negative nicknames that Ninja garnered, the rough ride experience, the decrease in ridership, and the final nail in the coffin of the jab that Ninja took on the big screen from the scene of a movie that grossed $107.2 million, change was desperately imminent. After the 2015 season, Six Flags Over Georgia would close down Ninja. After speculation and even some excitement, many felt like the coaster would finally be retired and closed for good. It would be noticed and announced in 2016 that Ninja would continue to reside at the park, but would be rebranded and repainted to get rid of the stink of the past of Ninja at Six Flags Over Georgia, and even of its predecessor Z-Force that stood in the same location at the park. It was time for Six Flags to actually invest more money in public relations with image consulting to Ninja that it badly needed. Ninja's track would be repainted blue, and the supports would get a new dark gray metallic paint touch-up. In April 2016, Six Flags Over Georgia would announce that they would leave it up to the public to choose the new name of the renovated Ninja. With the United States facing an election year that year of 2016, Six Flags hopped on the idea of a voting push. Essentially, Six Flags sought to go with a patriotic theme for its new name, making guests believe as if thousands of names were suggested in voting and that the park shuffled through the nominations and finally allegedly narrowed it down to 3 names. Those 3 names would be American Eagle, Air Commander, and last but not least, Blue Hawk. Voting for which one of the 3 would be the new name of Ninja would take place until May 8th, 2016. After nearly 6,000 votes were cast, the renovated Ninja would be renamed to Blue Hawk and would be reopened with 2 new trains with new soft vest restraints to eliminate the head trauma that the former hard, bulky over-the-shoulder restraints would cause. Blue Hawk would reopen to the public on Thursday, June 2nd, 2016.
We think you'll find that the ride is much faster, much smoother, much better, much more enjoyable, and most importantly, more repeatable. So now, let's count down from 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The inaugural flight of Blue Hawk is underway.
With high praise, smoothness of the new trains, and the comfort of the new soft vest restraints, Blue Hawk received a boost again in popularity with a new facelift and was once again well received for the first time in nearly a decade. Fast forward to modern day of 2025 at the time of this documentary. Although Blue Hawk has continued on, it still has a negative taste in the mouth of some park goers who experienced Ninja in the past, sometimes referring to Blue Hawk as Blue Ninja. But overall, the reception is at a stable plateau. Six Flags continues to invest in Blue Hawk even after the 2016 renovation of Ninja to Blue Hawk. As recently as 2024, Six Flags added new axles to one of its trains, and again to its second train in 2025, along with a brand new control panel and a refreshed queue. With the refreshed queue, the entry structure was torn down to provide a more picturesque view of Blue Hawk from all angles. Fun fact about the queue's entry structure: this was part of the same structure that housed a portion of the Z-Force queue. It was completely torn down though in 2024. Ninja came to the park as a world shaker to Six Flags Over Georgia that was meant to shake things up and cause shock and awe to park goers seeing the twisted steel structure that stood at 122 feet. Ninja unfortunately did what it was meant to do. It shook up equilibriums and spinal cords. But Ninja wasn't just a rough experience. It was once a spectacle to witness and experience. It had looped back full 360 to its well-received days with its renovation of Blue Hawk, as it's not the smoothest coaster in the world. While it's still quite intense, it still has solid ridership 33 years later at Six Flags Over Georgia. So here's the Blue Hawk, and hope it continues to soar above its legacy as Ninja. So I leave you with this. Ninja no sabisa ni kanshasimasu. Pardon my bad accent, but loosely translated, Ninja, thank you for your service.
Before you enter the Ninja, you have to walk past 2 ninjas standing at the gate.